Hey YouTubers! Welcome back to your unit on studying stoichiometry and solutions. And now we're going to do an example that requires a slightly higher level of thinking and knowledge and applying it to new circumstances. So let's take a look at the question. Calculate the number of cubic centimeters of 2 moles per dm cube of nitric acid solution required to react with 216 grams of silver according to this equation right here. So what the question is asking for is asking for us to determine the number of volume of this nitric acid that we used that will completely react with the silver. So how much of this will be required to completely react with the silver? Let's take a look at the balance equation. So in the balance equation, we can see that 3 moles of silver is required to react with 4 moles of nitric acid to form 3 moles of silver nitrate, 1 mole of nitrogen monoxide, and 2 moles of water. All right. So the first thing we need to do is to convert nitric acid that is expressed in a form of a solution in terms of concentration and converting the mass of silver to moles. So we need to convert this to moles and this to moles so that we can determine the ratio of silver and nitric acid. But then comes the question, how should I tackle this question? Will I be able to take this information here and determine the moles of nitric acid? Let's try that. So 2 moles per cubic decimeters of nitric acid. What other values can I obtain from the question to determine the moles of nitric acid? Well, I would need to multiply some volume, right? And do we have that information? No, we don't, because you are required to find the volume of nitric acid. So we can't determine the moles of nitric acid that was used. So what do? We need to look at the problem again and find out what mole values can we determine. So if we can't work with nitric acid, can we work and determine the amount of moles of silver? And yes, we can, because in order to convert mass to moles, we will use the triangular relationship between mass to moles. So for converting the mass to moles, we would take the mass and divide it by the relative mass. And the relative mass of silver is, here we go, 108. Okay, silver 108. So divided by the relative mass, or the AR of silver, we get to 2 moles of silver. Now that we have 2 moles of silver, can we determine the moles of nitric acid? Yes, we can, by looking at the ratio between silver and nitric acid. So from the balance equation, we can determine that the mole ratio between silver and nitric acid is 3:4. And so from our question here, we have determined that the moles of silver was 2. So what amount of nitric acid do we have? We take 8 divided by 3, and that should be 2.67. So we have indeed calculated that the amount of nitric acid needed is 2.67 moles of that substance. And now that we have the moles, can we determine the volume of nitric acid that we used? Yes, you can. By taking this value, okay, we will take a new look and we will say that the moles let me see, there you go, volume. Okay, so we want to determine the moles of, we want to determine the volume of nitric acid used. So we will take the moles and divide it by the molarity, which is simply moles per dm cube. Okay, so let's do that. We take the moles, which is 2.67. Here we go down here again. Moles divided by 2 moles per dm cube. And what do we have? We have 1.3. Okay? Now, the units of the moles here will cancel out, and the unit of dm cube will go up top. And so this would be the volume of nitric acid used in cubic decimeters. And we multiply it by 1,000 to convert it to 2, 3. Oops. Multiply by 1,000 to convert it from cubic decimeters to cubic centimeters. And so the answer that we have here now is 1,330 cubic centimeters of nitric acid used.